Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I see that already a couple of people have joined, and we leave some more time so that more people can arrive. Just already a few words about some administrative parts. This webinar will be recorded so that we can send you the link to the recording afterwards, and we will also publish it on YouTube later. And as well, I would like to let you know about our Q&A function. So if you have any kind of questions throughout the webinar, you can either use the Q&A function and ask directly, you can unmute yourself, you can speak up, you can do any kind of thing that you would like to do if you have a question. And with that, I will start to share my screen to today's presentation, which is a live demo of our AI-powered summarization tool. And 1 second, just have to go 1 second. I just need to change one setting here before I start. Sorry. Now again. Yes, now we are in the presenter view, and this is where I wanted to go. So my name, first of all, is Kimberly Holz, and I'm the Sales and Business Development Manager at Irisa. I have my colleague Ronan here with me today. She is our research lead and head of research collaboration. And Irisa is a Scandinavian startup, but we actually have our employees and clients all across Europe and as well as some outside of Europe. The company is specialized in natural language processing and machine learning. So we have a couple of different AI-based tools around the scientific knowledge management. And here you can see an overview of the different tools that we have in our suite. And if you want to find out more about our search and filter functions or about our extract tool with which you can automatically extract key data points from any kind of scientific document, started. Today, we will be using the words AI, the machine, and artificial intelligence, which are all different words, but they pretty much mean the same. And as well, so the webinar was planned for an hour, but I wanted to have a lot of room for questions. So depending on how many questions and interaction there is, we might be as well finishing earlier, just so that you know for your planning. So let's dive into it. For the ones that are here, have you heard of the expression TLDR before? So TLDR actually stands for too long, didn't read. And it likely originated on a comedy forum, something awful around 2002. And then it spread to other online forums. And nowadays it is used by authors when they give a short overview of their text. So does it sound like something you might have said before too? Too long, didn't read? Well, there are actually a lot of good examples for when you prefer to have a short of the document. For instance, if you're not sure yet if it's of interest for you, or when you actually only need the essence of it to continue with your work. And for me, a good example here is the book On the Origin of Species by Charles Darwin. Most likely, all of us here know his famous ideas on evolution and natural selection, but probably none of the attendees here has bothered to read the 502 pages long book. And if so, you can raise your hand or let me know, because I never met anyone who read it. And the reason for that is simply because for us, it has not been necessary to understand all the details of the book but to know the main messages. And we can also transfer this to the working life of a researcher. The number of published papers and patents grows exponentially. About 2 million papers are published per year, and that's about 5,500 per day, and the growth is growing. So to stay on top of all the new findings, one has to navigate through a vast amount of literature. And after a long search for the right paper, one then on top of all of that has to read each paper and summarize the main findings or what's interesting for me, or at least understand the main takeaways. And instead of reading through lengthy papers, wouldn't you prefer to quickly understand the main messages of the document? And if it's interesting, of course, go ahead and read it as your nighttime lecture. If we can quickly assess the main findings and messages of one or a couple of similar papers or patents or internal documents or whatever you like, we would use less of our valuable time reading and summarizing papers. Hence, we can allocate our resources to more important tasks like using the empirical findings on inventing a new product or a new drug or whatever field you're working in. And this is now where our summary tool comes into place. It automatically produces a summary of any given document for you. And at this point, I would like to explain you the difference between abstractive and extractive summary. So with an extractive summary, one identifies the relevant information and then extracts it and then groups it together to form a concise summary. So it's pretty much just extracting directly from the text what is interesting. And then in contrast to that, our Irisa AI summary tool creates abstractive summaries, meaning that the machine rewrites the entire document by building internal semantic representation, and then a summary is created using natural language processing. And also, it can make a summary of one or multiple documents. And for the multi-document summary, this means that the machine identifies the parts that the documents have in common and only makes a summary of that. And with that knowledge, I would like to demo you now our summary tool. So let's jump over. So this is our interface right now for the summary tool, and this is just a demo interface. So if this is set up for your company, this can have totally different layouts. So we could integrate it into your already existing processes. We can change the layout. We can really customize it. But this is just for the sake of showing you how the machine works. And here I will now copy and paste the text to summarize it. But again, here what we could do as well is to have like a drag and drop menu, or to integrate it with your previous Irisa AI tools so that it's all integrated into one workflow. And yeah, and the machine here right now is trained on patents. So I will be using a patent now for creating the summary. But of course, it can be easily retrained to any kind of other scientific document. So here I just chose a patent which is about a haptic guidance system and its method. And if you're dealing with patents, you probably know that they are very lengthy, very detailed, and to read all this without even knowing if maybe that's interesting or not for you is a challenge. And also here I already marked the summary of the invention, because this summary is for me not a summary because it's very, very long as well and takes some time to understand it. So what we do now is we just copy it, and then we just paste it here into our summary tool and hit summarize. And then we can see what Iris understands from the text. And here it is, quite short summary with the main facts for what we want to know. So it already talks about in the first sentence that it's a surgical method and apparatus, about the anatomy of a patient. Then it talks about the computer system, which is in the apparatus. and goes further into details about the haptic device and so on. So we can have a very quick overview of what this patent is about. And I actually see here now a question. So we have a question, does it summarize the entire patent or does it use the abstract? So actually we can summarize as much as we want. And actually here on the left-hand side, which does not look so user-friendly, there we can tell the machine how long our summary should be, if it should be very long, if it should be very short, and how much text should be used from the machine to generate the summary. So it's up to the user to choose if we just want to summarize the abstract or the entire patent. And as you saw, I just copy pasted a part out of it that I wanted. Hope that answers the question. Yes, so this is our summary tool here. And as well, if you're interested in it, it's ready to be used, it's ready to be deployed. And if you are interested in it, we can as well create licenses for this tool. Then now let us go back to the presentation, because now I'm very happy for this next part and very excited because I will be talking to Ronan, and I'm very happy that she agreed to be here today and to be interviewed by me. So welcome, Ronan.
Hello everyone. My name is Ronina.
And maybe before we start, I just saw there's another question. Could a particular aspect of the invention to be extracted? If I understood this question correctly, it means that just a particular part should be extracted of a document. So yes, this is possible, either by then just copy pasting or by highlighting which part should be summarized. So yes, it can be adapted how much or which parts should be summarized. And now, Ronan, maybe you could describe us first of all in easy terms the tech behind what we just saw in the demo.
Yes, sure. So first, I would like to start by the motivation of this whole development. So in Irisa, we are developing a tool that is helping the user to be able to search the papers or patents that are most relevant for their interest. And the way that we present those papers and the patents to the user is that we draw a map, as you can see here on the screen, and then we group different papers that are in the similar topic into those different groups that you have seen here. And now the way that we present the those document cluster to the user is that we choose one important key phrases that are representative for this cluster, and then we show the user this whole cluster with this label. But as you can see here, there's a problem here because one word couldn't really describe very much about what this cluster is about. So the motivation that drives this project is that we would like to figure out a way that can actually represent this cluster to the user in a more user-friendly way, so that when the user look at this cluster, they can understand what articles are contained inside this cluster right away. So that goes to our research questions in this project. Our motivation is, how do we label those different document clusters, and how do we label them in the way that is human readable? So we started building the architecture of our model, and the model architecture, it is based on the a encoder and decoder architecture. And in our model, this architecture is called pointer generator. So basically that it identifies the most relevant parts of the articles, and it tried to encode it in the way that when the user sends a new articles, similar articles into the model, it will be able to use the information that it has learned before, so that it can identify quickly what are the important words that should be used in the summarization. So this encoder and decoder architecture is basically the foundation of our model. And yes, so can we go to the next slide?
Yes, we can, but Ronan, maybe before we talk about the development process, we have another question from the audience. And the person is asking, does the summary tool require training or a similar preparation? So maybe we could answer that question first.
Sure. So yes, so I think that once that the model is trained, I think that we have a refining process that will be quickly tailor the summarization to the needs of the users in the particular field. So I think that the difficult things here for the summarization tool is to curate enough data sets for the first stage of the training. So yeah, so I would say that our tool right now has already the general model prepared. And what we will need to do, if we want to refine the model to some more domain-specific language, then we can work together to try to refine the model in that direction. So there's another question from Alexander.
Exactly, and I think this is, Alexander, we will come to this in a second, because this is actually one of the last questions that I have for Ronan. So we'll get back to that, Alexander, don't worry. Yeah, so Ronan, maybe we continue now with the development process. So how was the development process, and did you face any challenges along?
Yeah, sure. So the whole project actually started with a collaboration with one of our master students when he worked in Iris AI. So in the development phase, that you can see that in order for the model to work well, the first thing is that we need to identify the important sentences in the text that we provide to the model, so that it will be able to run the summarization using the most important context. Now, how to choose those most important context, it is one of the first challenge that we face, that we tested different kinds of the algorithm, and in the end, a combination of the frequency-based TF-IDF extraction actually gave us a pretty good indication. And that is something that we introduced to the algorithm. And another thing that is a bit difficult here is that the input text needs to be pretty cleaned, which is a bit difficult when you're dealing a very big quantity of the data. So another thing that that we face in the difficulty is to how to best process the text so that we can have a clean enough text to train the model. And then once we go over those difficulties, another phase is that when we start the training, we also need to identify a good point to stop the training process, because if we continue training the model for too long, there's a risk that the model can be overtrained and the performance would then be degraded. So another thing that we face is that we need to also choose the good point to stop the training. So what we do is that we monitor the training every day, and we stop the model training at certain different times of the day and run the evaluation to see that if the performance of the model right now is good enough, so that we can decide what is the best point to stop our training. And these are all the different challenges that we have faced during the development.
Perfect, thank you. And you already touched a little bit on the quality and on the training of the machine. So how can we actually ensure the quality to our clients that the summary is good?
Yes. So in our training process, we constantly use this score called Rouge score to evaluate our model, and this is a metric that is widely adopted in the research, in the NLP research, to evaluate the machine summarization models. And the architecture that we're using is the pointer generator. That's the encoder and decoder architecture. And on top of that, because the machine needs to take in a big chunk of the text and try to select the most relevant text. So this process is actually a very memory consuming process. So we use this rotation unit of memory architecture in order to make the memory consumption more efficient. And on top of that, we also added a coverage layer. It's a little bit like the attention score. If you are a bit familiar with those NLP terms, it is to guide the machine to quickly identify which words are the most important. So in the bottom of this table that you can see, this is the architecture that we're currently using, and it's the results that Kimberly has earlier just demoed you. And compared to the other architecture that are currently state of the art, that we can see that our model performance in the Rouge evaluation metric actually works comparatively well, and even slightly better than most of the state of the art. And that's what gives us the evidence that we can probably start applying the model in a wider usage.
Great, that's great to hear for us and as well for our clients. And so last question, and this comes back to Alexander's question, so listen up. Maybe Ronan, can you give us a teaser for what's next with the summary tool?
Yeah, sure. So as Kimberly has already mentioned earlier, that right now we already have this functionality that we can do multi-document summarization. So Kimberly has just showed you how we can do a single document summarization, but in our algorithm, it's actually also capable of doing multiple document summarization in the way that it will identify the most relevant context in all the different text that the user input, and then it will try to make a summary of all these different articles into one concise paragraph and present that to the user. So in order to show you the results, I actually prepare a small paragraph here that is summarized by our model. And the articles that I chose are 12 articles that are 12 patents, actually, 12 patents that are related to using mRNA type of the vaccine to treat various diseases, including cancer. So you can see that in this paragraph, although of course that there are still things that it can improve, but if you give a very quick read, you can see that the summary here already makes sense. And what we are trying to do here is to improve the content identification process so that we can actually put together the relevant content in a more precise and in a more efficient way. So this is something that we are currently developing. And another thing that we're also trying to develop is to also have the model be more topic specific. And this is also something that we're currently developing, that so that once we have a general model trained on the articles that the users are interested in, then we can also introduce some more specific vocabularies and the ways of writing that are important to a certain field, so that the model can be even more precise for some of the users' needs. So these are the things that we're currently developing. And another point is also that our model currently that we show you is trained on the patent data, but the language that's used in the scientific publication and in the patents is very different. So in order for the model to be able to summarize well a scientific publication, we are also now training the model so that it can learn the scientific publication language better. So these are the things that we are currently developing, and it should be ready soon.
Yes, and as well, similar to the multi-document summarization, where the machine identifies what all the documents have in common, as well in our pipeline is that the user can specify what it is interested actually in the document, so that only that part is then summarized. So for instance, if you're only interested in the method part of the document, then this will be summarized. Or as well, if you tell the machine, I'm just interested about anything around this topic X, then the machine just summarizes you everything about topic X in a document. So that it's not just for the multiple, so as well for the single ones, that the user can choose what kind of summary of which specific parts and topics of the text they want to have. And then we have another question. Can you compare the summary you do of a patent with the abstract of the patent and see similarities and differences? Ronan, have we done something like this before?
Yeah, actually that is the whole process in our evaluation, including using this Rouge score. So the way that we train the model is that we use like more than 1 million patents and their abstract to train a model, so that the model can chunk in the full text and be able to produce the abstract as close as possible. So by comparing our summary and the real abstract, this is the process that we have been doing in the development phase.
All right. And maybe just one more question. What about different languages? So I think right now the machine is just in English. Can it also be possible to have summaries of documents of different languages?
That's a very good question. So I think that currently, because the corpus the data that is most accessible to us is actually the English patents and the English articles, it would be possible to apply this to other languages. But then I think that one of the things is also that we will be able to collect enough data for this particular language that the users are interested in. And once that is done, I think it will be it's possible that we will be able to train a model that can actually summarize the articles in a different language.
All right, perfect. Then I would already say thank you from my side. This was all that we have prepared. And here as well, see there my email address and the link to our website. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out. And yes, are there any remaining questions?
No. Alexander is saying thank you for interesting presentation. Thank you for your interest as well.
Thank you. All right, then we can finish a little bit earlier. As I said, we left a lot of time, a lot of room for questions and interactions. So thank you all for participating and for attending. And yes, the webinar is being recorded and will be sent to you after probably tomorrow when we've processed it. And as well, it will be put on YouTube. And you're very welcome, Michael. Thank you. All right, everyone. Then, wait, yes. Very welcome. Thank you. All right. Then have a good afternoon, day, morning, wherever you're based, and hope to be in touch soon. Thank you. Goodbye.